Hello everyone, welcome back warrior students. Today I want to show you a method that I use to sometimes increase my DPS in burst. So this video should have released 1.5 weeks earlier, but I changed my internet provider and they got something wrong, so I had no internet for more than a week. However, we are back now and I can do the video finally. So the method I'm talking about is to use your personal active damage cities like Recklessness, Death Wish, Orc Racial, unused trinkets, together with the external CD that gets used almost every fight, which is Bloodlust, and your procs like Executioner Enchant, for example, or Dragonspine Trophy, or whatever proc you want to aim for. I recommend only aiming for one proc because getting multiple things to proc at the same time and then use your cooldowns will most likely not happen. A better way is to wait for one proc, then use everything and just hope for the rest to proc. So this method is especially useful in fights that are like sub 2 minutes or exactly 2 minutes, because in those kind of fights you are only going to use your cooldowns once anyways. So you want to get the most value out of this one usage. And yeah, your first goal is obviously to use your cooldowns together with Bloodlust, because Bloodlust gives you 30% haste, which is a huge increase to the value of your other DPS cities if you use them together with this 30% haste increase. But yeah, Bloodlust gets popped most of the time at the start of the fight, and then it lasts for 40 seconds. So your longest lasting damage CD that comes from yourself is Death Wish, that lasts for 30 seconds, so it's 10 seconds less than Bloodlust. So technically speaking, you have 10 seconds of time after Bloodlust gets popped that you can use to wait for the proc. I would wait for Executioners. So I have 10 seconds to wait for Executioners before I need to use my Death Wish, or before I need to basically use all my CDs. Then if I don't get the Executioners procs after 10 seconds, I used my Death Wish, and then I technically have another 9 seconds that I can wait for Recklessness and my Berserker's Call, and then I technically would have another 6 seconds until I need to pop my potion and my Blood Fury that I can use to wait for the Executioner's proc. So let me show you once in action, and after this we are going to take a look at the macros and the weak auras that you need for this. So let's say the fight starts, we are doing Battle Shout, things like this, and the shaman is going to use Bloodlust. So we start the DPSing, maybe put out some more thunders, and there you can see my Executioner procced, but we are going to assume it didn't proc, so I use my Death Wish. And then when Death Wish lasts for 21 more seconds, I need to use my Recklessness and my Berserker's Call. And now Executioner proc, so I can use the rest. So this was obviously a very slow example because I needed to explain the things, and therefore yeah, I was too slow on those things, but yeah, I think you know what I mean. So I'm going to show you one more example where I did not talk while I was recording, so where I did basically everything right, including the rotation, so you get a better idea. Alright, let's take a look at the macros that I use. So the macros that you need depend on the level of tryhard that you want to go for this method, basically, because there are like 3 levels of tryhard. The first level would be to delay your death wish with your other cities to wait for a proc. The next level of tryhard would be to delay your recklessness, and then the last level of tryhard would be to delay your haste potion and your blood fury in order to wait for the proc, like for the executioner enchant or whatever proc you want to wait for. So one thing that you want to have if you go for the first 2 levels of tryhard, then you want to have this recklessness macro that uses everything together with recklessness, blood fury, recklessness, unused trinket, haste potion. Keep in mind that blood fury needs to be on top here because of a strange interaction with the GCD. I can show it real quick. So if I press something that triggers the global cooldown, blood fury will be affected, but if I press blood fury, the other spells will not be affected. Boop. No global cooldown on the other spells. So this is why blood fury needs to be on top if you write it down in a macro together with other spells that are on the global cooldown as well. Then if you go for the 3rd level of tryhard, you want to have a macro that uses recklessness together with, for me, Berserker's Call, because they last both for 20 seconds or round about 20 seconds. And you obviously need a macro for your haste potion and your racial, or you just need a binding for your haste potion if you do not have a DPS ratio or anything else that has like a 15 seconds duration. And then you can use a Death Wish macro that uses all your stuff together with Death Wish for the cases in which you do not have recklessness ready, because normally you use Death Wish and then you use recklessness together with everything else, but if you don't have recklessness ready, then you can use everything else together with Death Wish. So let's say, for example, the fight starts, Bloodlust gets popped, after 5 seconds I get an Executioner proc, boop, I use this macro. If I do not get an Executioner proc after 10 seconds, I can just use Death Wish as vanilla in my bar, and then I can wait basically until I have 15 seconds left of my Death Wish to use my haste potion and my blood fury. So that's it for the macros, and next we are going to talk about the weak auras. Okay, let's talk about the weak auras that you want to have and that I have in the video description, so you can just get them from there. First of all, you obviously need the weak aura that shows you the duration of Bloodlust. This is the first most important weak aura. And then you want to have a weak aura that shows you the proc that you want to wait for. For example, Executioner, like in this package we have Executioner, DST, Tsunami Talisman, Mongoose and Madness of the Betrayer. I need to change this to spell ID, but it will be changed when the weak aura, like when you download it. So first of all, the Bloodlust weak aura, what you can do, like if you have 30 seconds left, you want to use your Death Wish, right? So what you can do is you can click on the Bloodlust weak aura and then you go to conditions. And then you could, I do it one time with you together, you click on add condition. Like if you get the weak aura, the condition will already be there, but just so that you know. And then you know how you can change this as well. And then you have some if and then. So if something happens, then something else should happen. So if remaining duration equals, let's say 33, then I want it to play a sound. Play sound channel master, like your game overall volume, and then you can choose a sound from this list. So I'm going to go with the air horn for this, equals 33. So this means that if the remaining duration on Bloodlust is 33 seconds, it will make this air horn sound, so that I know without looking at the timer that I need to use my death wish right now, otherwise I will lose out on value on the death wish. And then what you want to do is you want to add something to the proc that will trigger when the proc occurs, or maybe you want to do that. So if my executioner procs, I want a sound as well. So if you want to do something like this, you can click on the proc that you want to track. For me it's executioner, and then you go to triggers, and no, not to triggers, you go to actions, and then you select below this on show. You can go to play sound, so this means like on show, so when the weak hour will show up, something you want something to happen. So on show, I select play sound. Sound channel is again master, and the sound I want to have is this bam sound. So you can do all kinds of stuff, but for this I will only show you how this works. So now I know when my executioner procs without the need to like look at my stuff. So if you want to add a buff to this, you could duplicate one of those. For example, the Tsunami Talisman I would duplicate, and then you can go to trigger and type in the spell ID, or if you don't have the spell ID, you do this, and then you change the name to whatever the buff is called on your client in your buff bar. So you need to get it to proc, and then you need to look it up and write it down in here. So you would write it down, press enter, and there you have it. Then you can drag them around or make them bigger, smaller, whatever you want. And keep in mind that I have some flares added to those proc regards. For example, here below the recklessness regard, there is another regard that procs a little flare when when I pop rec, there will be a flare coming up, or when executioner procs, there will be a flare as well down here. So if you want to have this beautiful flare animation, you need to duplicate the weak aura for this as well, and then change the name to whatever you want it to be under triggers, and then you have your flare again. If you don't want the flares, you can just right click here and delete. We'll delete this for now as well. Like if you don't want the tsunami flare, you can just right click and delete it. So the next thing that you maybe want to add is something to your death wish under conditions, because when death wish lasts for only 21 more seconds, this is your last call to pop your recklessness, if you have 3 out of 3 points into improved discipline, that is. So you can again do remaining time equals or below 23, play a sound. I have it on 23 seconds, not on 21, just to give me some time to use my recklessness and to use my recklessness. So, and then I have one more condition for the 3rd level of tryhard, basically, that triggers on 17 seconds, so that I don't know for what this is. So that triggers here on 17 seconds, so I know when the last call is to use my haste potion, basically. Yeah, and that's everything you need and everything you need to know to perform this method. And until the next one, stay tuned, take care.